So I have been asked to talk to you all about the FourWay Test, and it's a very important part of being a Rotarian, and in fact, I would even suggest being a human being in this very complicated and challenging world that we live in. So the FourWay Test, I'm going to share with you a little bit of a history about the FourWay Test, and then how we apply it as Rotarians, and then a brief commentary on what's known as the Four Agreements, which really in many ways mirrors the FourWay Test that we use in Rotary. So the FourWay Test is the FourWay Test of the things we think, say, or do. And if any of you who are not Rotarians with us today have ever been to a Rotary meeting or a Rotary event, or even the office of a Rotarian, you will and you should hear the FourWay Test, see it framed. One of the things that I have done for a long time since becoming a Rotarian is actually send copies of this to our local politicians in the hope that they may one day aspire to the FourWay Test. So we frame this, we hang it in our offices. I have it on the back of my business cards as a constant reminder of the four doors that we go through of the things that we think, say, or do. But before we get into it in a bit more detail, let me just share with you the history. So the FourWay Test is one of the world's most widely printed, what we call a statement of business ethics. And it was actually created by a Rotarian, a gentleman by the name of Herbert Taylor. And the story is that in the 1930s, Herbert was asked to take charge of a company in the United States that was facing bankruptcy. And back in 1932, this company made aluminium pots and pans. It was a very well-established distributor of cookware and other household items, but they were going bankrupt. And of course, those of you that know history will know that 1932 was just after the Great Depression. So a lot of firms in the United States and around the world were really finding their financials in a lot of distress. And so they brought Herbert in to see whether he could, in fact, turn the company's fortunes around. They knew that they had good products, but they also had a lot of competition. They knew they had great staff, but so did their competitors. So one of the things that Herbert had to do was find a way to set this company apart from its competition, and also to inspire his people to do better and to do more. So this really, without even realizing, I think, is about competitive advantage. And this is Herbert Taylor thinking about the organization in a way that was going to be able to set them apart from and make them better than their competition. So he really wanted to think about how he could affect the people, because anybody who's in business knows, doesn't matter how great your product is, it doesn't matter how fantastic or innovative your service is, if you don't have good people, if your people are not committed to the organization, to your customers, to your products and services, then you really can't build and grow and strengthen your organization. So he really wanted to emphasize as their competitive advantage, the people in the organization and how service-oriented they were and their dependability, which, if you think about it, is what we do in Rotary, because Rotary clubs are only as good as the Rotarians. Rotary districts are only as good as the Rotarians and their commitment and their reliability and their service orientation. So the company did have a code of ethics. Indeed, many organizations do. But when he looked at it, he felt it was too long, it was difficult to remember, and he wanted a simple measuring stick. And in fact, when Herbert Taylor tells the story of this, and it's well documented, he talks about wanting some questions that people could ask themselves before they made any decisions about customers, suppliers, and the business in general. So he wanted to make it simple, but he really wanted it to be in the form of questions that people could ask themselves before they did anything, said anything, or made any decisions. He also discussed the FourWay Test as it was now being crafted with different heads of departments in his organization from different faiths. And this is an important test because you don't want to introduce something that's going to alienate one particular group or another. And of course, in Rotary, we really do cherish our diversity of opinion, of religious views and of values. But the people that he spoke to, there was a Catholic, there was a a Christian Scientist, a Jew, they all felt that the four-way test that he was proposing really was not contrary to any religious ideals. Everybody agrees, regardless of faith, that justice, truth, being helpful, being friendly, really are human characteristics. And they're also very applicable to business. And, you know, it's interesting because when we think about business, we don't often think about truth and justice. We think about profit, we think about market share, we think about, you know, exploring new markets, getting new customers. But really, to run a business that is meaningful, not just profitable, a business that takes care of its people and its customers, really does come down to the ethics of your organization. And the same thing applies to our Rotary clubs. We're not just here to sell barbecue tickets to raise money to, you know, build a library or install a playground. We're talking about changing lives and improving people's lives and communities. And the same thing should apply in business. So without even realizing it, Herbert Taylor had cottoned on to the idea of corporate social responsibility, which we all know now as a very common theme in business. But this is in the 1930s, coming out of the First World War, going into the Second World War, coming out of the Great Depression. So there was really about money and making money and rebuilding businesses and communities. But he took a completely different approach and focused on the people in his organization and how they felt about the company and how they felt about the customers that they dealt with. And so the four-way test was applied by his organization, by his staff, and any business dealing that they came across, opportunity for new customers, opportunity for new sales, they would walk through the four-way test. And if it met any of the criteria, if it didn't meet, any of the criteria, they would not do the deal. And so the company thrived. It's amazing to think, and those of us that own businesses and run businesses almost can't fathom the idea of, before you make a decision to do business with a giant conglomerate or a great new opportunity, that you run it through the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Do you think about that when you think about your business or anything that you do in life? And then when Herbert became president of Rotary International, he donated this code. And in 1943, during the Second World War, this became the official credo of Rotary International and Rotarians. So for more than 80 years, this has been the guiding code for Rotarians, the work that we do in our communities, the way we run our clubs. And I do think we say it every week at our meetings. We say it out of rote now. We all know it. We can say it, you know, without even thinking about it. But we should think about it. We should really understand why the four-way test is there. Why do we say it? Are we really applying it? So it's an ethical guide. It is a test for us to use in all of our relationships. And I want to break it down for you into the 4 different components, because the four-way test is not just something printed on a card or on a plaque. It is really about how we build relationships as Rotarians, as human beings. And for young people coming into your careers, building your lives, whether you're still in academia or you're going to be graduating college soon and you're thinking about what career to choose, or those of you that are in Interact and Rotaract and are already engaged in service to your community and to your school and your fellow man, you need to always think about the relationships that you build, because relationships are what make life worth living, quite frankly. Whether in my case, it's a relationship with my cat and my dog, or my fellow Rotarians, my family. Think about all the good things in your life, all the great memories you have. Most of them are with other people. And that's because you've built relationships. So as you go into your professional lives, the four-way test is a wonderful tool to really guide you to build not just business relationships, but lasting, meaningful, genuine relationships. So the first question that we ask ourselves, is it the truth? This is not always an easy question to answer. Why do we want to know if it's the truth? Well, in the long run, as Theodore Roosevelt said, the most unpleasant truth is a safer companion than a pleasant falsehood. We all know how difficult it is to keep up with lies. If you've ever told a lie and then you've got to try and justify it and keep going, the truth is always easier. You know, we know from our own growing up with our church and our school and our family about telling the truth. We all know that this is something that we're supposed to do. And yet in real life, day-to-day life, telling the truth is not always easy. If you're telling a customer something because you're trying to win a deal, or you're telling a colleague in your Interact Club or your Rotary Club something, the reason why you didn't complete a project or why you didn't submit a report, are you really being honest? You know, the dog ate my homework is not always the truth. So using the truth as the very first step through the four-way test, it's there for a reason. And the truth means that you are somebody that I can trust. It builds trust between people and between groups. If I know that you are telling me the truth, even if it's unpleasant and hard to hear, I know that you are somebody who acts with integrity. And telling the truth is the first step in acknowledging a problem and then working towards a solution. You cannot solve a problem if you're building on lies. So telling the truth is a difficult thing to do, but it's an important thing to really commit to doing if you want to be somebody who is known for their standards, their integrity, their trustworthiness. This is why we don't trust so many politicians in the world. If you think about the politicians in your own country, globally, you know, the stories are littered with politicians. We don't trust them because we don't believe they're telling the truth. They might say one thing on the political platform, and when they get into office, something completely different happens. So don't let that be the standard that you have as a Rotarian, as an interactor, as a Rotaractor, as a human being. You should be committed to being somebody that people know they can trust. You'll always tell the truth, even if it's hard to hear. This means that you use critical thinking, you ask the hard questions, but you then become somebody who is a trusted problem solver. So if your Interact Club has a problem, or there's a problem in your school or in your community group, whatever, even in your family that needs to be resolved, people should know that they can come to you and they'll get the truth and that you'll ask the difficult questions. So the first question, is it the truth, is all about building trust. The second question that we ask, is it fair to all concerned? So we've established, first of all, that it's the truth, but the truth may not be fair to everybody. So the two questions do have to go hand in hand, because yes, you can tell the truth, but it may not be fair to all concerned. And this is about accountability. Now, you've all heard of the golden rule, I'm sure, but there's also the platinum rule, which I hadn't heard of until quite recently. So the golden rule is to treat others as you wish to be treated. The platinum rule is to treat others as they wish to be treated. So that is all about understanding their needs. And this is a really important distinction, because in Rotary, many service organizations, one of the things that we have been charged with doing is really truly understanding the communities that we serve, the groups that we work with, and understanding what they want, how they wish to be treated, what are their expectations. And in doing that, in asking those questions, so we may have a project in mind that Rotary's excited about and the Interact Club's excited about, but the community, not so much. Have we really truly stopped to understand what their interests are and how what we're going to do will affect them? And if we really ask those questions, is it fair to them? This leads to accountability. Again, not something we're terribly strong on in this part of the world, particularly when it comes to, you know, public spending and these sorts of things. As a Rotary Club, as an Rotaract Club, as a young person, anybody, you should be able to stand behind the decisions you made and be able to share with full transparency what you've done, why you did it, bearing in mind that it was fair to everybody involved. So fairness leads to accountability, which we should be as Rotarians, especially, of course, using donor money and Rotary Foundation money. So Fairness speaks to understanding other points of view and trying to find shared and common goals. It's a simple question, but a very impactful one. Is it fair to all concerned? The third element of our four-way test is about building relationships, which I spoke to briefly earlier. So we've asked, is it the truth? We've asked whether it's fair to all concerned. Now we want to determine whether it's actually going to achieve what we want, which is building relationships and friendships. And this is about fellowship, which is something that Rotarians are known for. Rotary is fellowship through service, or service through fellowship, depending on which club you're in. And we're known for building relationships, both in our local clubs and as well as, of course, in the district, in the Caribbean, and in the wider Rotary world. But it also, in fellowship, is about including everybody, about respecting different points of view, about being open to different suggestions and ideas, and not thinking that you always know the answer, and really agreeing on how we want to go forward as a club, as a group, to make sure that we achieve those objectives that we've set for ourselves. But the relationships that we build as Rotarians, as interactors and Rotaractors, is what gives us the passion to do the work. Because anybody can do work on their own. Anybody can, you know, do a project by themselves. But the joy of service is in fellowship. Spending time with people you like, you've got a common goal, you're excited about the project, even if it's virtual. It's still lovely to spend time with people virtually, not quite the same, of course, but, you know, Rotarians are known for getting their hands dirty and for getting in there and doing the work together. And in that process, we build relationships and we build friendships. And those last a lifetime. And the fourth question is it going to be beneficial? So you've asked if it's the truth, you've asked if it's fair, you've asked if it's going to build friendships and relationships. And now you want to make sure that everybody involved benefits. And this is about loyalty and having win-win situations. So, you know, we are naturally inclined to act in our own self-interest. But as a Rotarian, as an interactor, Rotaractor, young person in service, everybody that you encounter should win. It really should be about cooperation rather than confrontation. So you want to, and that's how you build loyalty. That's how you get sponsors coming back to you, Rotarians staying in your club, people recommending you, people in the community coming back to you time and time again, and the media supporting the work you're doing. All of that is because we are working together to achieve a common goal. And we really do view every encounter when we wear our Rotary pin or wear our Rotary shirt as a win-win situation, and not me versus you, but me and you. And we build loyalty in that way. And this is really what we should strive for, because this is what Herbert Taylor did. In the long run, if you want to build a successful business, a successful career, a successful Rotary club, it's about everybody in that organization winning, from the receptionist to the CEO, from your newest member to your most experienced member. And that builds loyalty. It pays off. So this is the fourth gate that we go through. So the four-way test, if we really think about it and we really apply it to what we do as Rotarians, has massive impact. So for anybody in this call that says the four-way test every week without really thinking about it, I would encourage you to stop a moment and really truly think about the 4 questions and how you apply them as a Rotarian and how you apply them in your business. And so the four-way test is really, in many ways, a parallel to what's known as the 4 agreements. And this is an ancient philosophy that talks about happiness, talks about love. So there is a mirror. The 4-way test is about relationship building. It's about being fair, being transparent, being loyal. The 4 agreements speaks more to love and to connection. So there are similarities, but also slightly different. So I'm just going to briefly share the 4 agreements with you because I think they're lovely. So these actually come from ancient Mexico in the very, hundreds of thousands of years ago, from the city of Tula and the great iconic feathered serpent god that they're known for. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. It's similar to my surname, Quetzalcoatl. And so some of you may have heard of the Toltec. And the Toltec had this 4 agreements. They were revered for the way that they live their lives as an art form. So that everything you do in your life, from the moment you wake up in the morning, is a conscious spiritual act. And not spiritual in the religious sense, but a conscious act of building a better, happier world, building relationships that are meaningful. So even when you're awake, you're almost in a sense, or they felt that life was a bit like a dream. You know, you're only here for a little while, so make it count. So the 4 agreements, and think about how they connect to the 4-way test. The first is to be impeccable with your word. This means that you only say what you mean. You use words to speak truth and love. You don't gossip. You don't speak badly about others. If you don't, my mother always used to say, and I'm sure many of you who are old like me know this, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. You know, I don't necessarily agree with that, but the idea is that the words that you use have power. And if you say you're going to do something, you should do it. There's nothing more frustrating in this life than somebody promising something that they then don't deliver. So make a commitment to be impeccable with your word. The second agreement that you make with yourself is to not take things personally. And this is really about when other people react or behave in a certain way, it's their problem, it's their issue, it's not yours. And this is about understanding what you can and can't control. You can only control how you behave. And you will behave with integrity, with love, with truth, because that's what you've committed to. You cannot control how other people behave. The third agreement is to not make any assumptions. And this speaks to asking questions. This is about finding the truth, which also, of course, ties back to our 4-way test. And then finally, always do your best in everything in life, whether it's making a cup of coffee for your mum in the morning, doing your homework, doing a presentation for Rotary, being district governor, whatever it is that you're going to do in your life, you always do your best. And this changes every day. But it's important to make a commitment to do your best throughout your life. So my friends, the 4-way test, the 4 agreements, important things to remember as you build your lives, as you build your careers, your families, have them in front of you, have them as a reminder. Every decision you make, every act you take, every step you take, I'm sounding like the police now, every step you take, every breath you take, think about the 4-way test, think about the 4 agreements, and let them guide you to a life of truth and honesty. Thank you very much.